Hiya. Today I've got on the bench a pair of Commodore Plus 4s. They came to me as supposedly not working, so shall we see if we can find out what's wrong with them and maybe get them going? Let's go. Now one of these clearly has a bit of a suntan. Let's just have a quick look at the back. This is EA4 215547. Series 255042-24. This one is EA5 207169. Lower number, higher EA thing 25504-25. I would guess this one was made later than the other one, but we will see when we look inside them. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is plug them in, switch them on and just see if they do work or not. We're going to start with the sunburnt one. I'm using my homemade power supply with the little blue mini light, which we've seen on this channel before. So let's power it on. Red light comes on, that's a good start. We have nothing on the screen. So that doesn't even give us a black screen, that just gives us nothing. Let's unplug it and plug in the other one. It's kind of wobbly because two of the feet are missing from underneath. Okay. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. No light, nothing on the screen. Okay, let's take this one apart since it's currently on the bench. Turn it off and just have a look inside. PCBWay are makers of high quality printed circuit boards. Whether it's one of these or one of these or one of these, you can design them yourself and upload the Gerber files. You can download the Gerber files from a GitHub project and upload it to PCBWay. You can use one of their many shared projects that other people have created and left on their website for you to build. And they do so much more. They do CNC machining, they do 3D printing, they do flex PCBs, they do sheet metal work. Check them out, www.pcbway.com. The usual array of 5 screws. So there's the innards. Are we going to guess what's wrong? Nothing feels residually hot. I guess that's a good sign. I'm going to take the keyboard off because we don't actually need that. Let's take the board out. Do we have any guesses as to what the problem is going to be? The answer's on a postcard. If you can get it to me before the end of the video. Okay, the underside of the board looks clean. It doesn't look as if there are any rework mods on it. Everything is fresh and bright. These areas of brown and stuff are basically where it was hand soldered at the factory, and they didn't bother cleaning up the flux. So my gut feeling is going to be the CPU, because I don't have any spares. Although we had no power light. Now that could mean that either the connector, and I think there's a bit of dust in there, but it's nothing much. I think that could mean that connector looks okay. So I think that could mean we have a power supply problem. Let's turn the scope on and we can just check the power. Okay, let's switch it on. So just poke some values around and see if we've got some voltages. Nothing. I need to grab me a circuit diagram just so I know what I'm looking at. So I've got a schematic that shows the power section, and that comes in here and goes through this switch. Now, I don't know if you can see that. I'll try and zoom in on it. That switch looks, or at least those leads look kind of black and crusty. I think maybe something has been going on there. Maybe we've got a problem with that switch. So let's see if we can figure out. Here's the switch. Doesn't tell us which pins are what, but the 9-volt switch goes to the AC and the other one goes to 5 volts. So I'll unplug it for the time being. And let's just see if we can measure some continuity. So, okay, looking at the back, these two are connected together, these two are connected together, and that provide the output. So I think this one is 5 volts and this one is 9 volts, purely from looking at where they go. That and that are connected, that and that should not be connected. Let's throw the switch. Aha! They are still not connected, so we have a faulty switch. Let's double check the fuse. Fuse is fine. So we're going to take that switch off. I don't have another one. I'm not sure how easily available they are, but we might be able to take it apart and clean it. I've fired up the soldering iron. Let's take this switch off. Okay, both of these are connected, and of course that's a big chunky ground plate. Okay, it's just these last two pins. So those pins are very, very black. I don't know why. But I think if we can get underneath here without stabbing myself, we should be able to open it up. Right, I don't want to use my good tweezers, so this is a fairly old crappy pair of spike pliers. Let's see if we can get inside. Ah, okay, it's coming. Of course, once we've got this apart, we might not get it back together again. It's coming, that's got it. I think that's got it. We may just be discovering we need a new switch, but we won't know until we've looked. Okay, I think the thing to do is to give this a good clean with some contact cleaner and then try and put it back together. So that pin goes in that hole. And it, whoops. Well, that went very tiny spring, but the pin flew across the room. So, unless I can find it, we may be stuffed. I spent the entire of Sunday morning scouring the floor, but I couldn't find the pin, so I've ordered another one. 13 quid. Ouch. That's got to come from Italy, and so it'll probably take a couple of weeks thanks to the Brexit tax. But one thing that we can do while we're waiting is we can check the MOS chip and we can check the TED chip, and we can do that by putting them in the Commodore 16 and basically seeing if it still works. So let's do that. Here's the Commodore 16. It runs off a 9-volt center negative, just like a Spectrum. Plug the video in. There we go. And just double check that it works. So power it on, switch the plug on, power it on, and yep. So put my wrist strap on, open it up. Screws are already out, which is convenient. I need to find my chip puller outer, because as always I'm not fully prepared. Right, so let's take the 8501 out of here, which is 3684. There we go. And take the 8501 3784. So it's the following week. And that one points that way and that one points that way. We need to remember that. Double check we are going the right way. There we go. That's our known working one. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Nothing. So that looks like we've got a dead CPU. Okay, I'm going to put the original CPU back in and then we'll take out the TED. So the original CPU is back in and I've double checked that it works, and we can take this one and put a big X on it. That is an X CPU. Now, this lid looks like it's already been off since it's actually lifted at this end. But we can take it off. Right, now I'm going to clean the gunk off that, I think. Because if it does work, we'll need to put fresh gunk on there. 8360 R2 4584 4584. So they are the same vintage. Now what I'm going to do is put a little tick on this so that I know this is the original. Okay, so that's come out. Test one goes in. Just plug in the bits. Plug in the power. Go back to the screen, switch on the plug. And that is working. Switch it off. So we can actually put a tick on this as well. And that has gone back in here. So I'm going to clean up the lid of this and then apply some new heatsink. So bend this out a bit just so that there is some more tension there. This is what I've got lying about, which is Noctua NTH1 thermal paste. There we go, we just put a dab on there. That is definitely going to make contact, and that should do the job. So we know this has got a dead CPU, and we know that the power plug had failed. We don't know anything more at the moment, and that's all we can do with it. Shall we take a look at the other +4? Let's clean the bench and come back. I've put this one back together because that is the easiest way not to lose the screws and everything. And I've taped the switch to the back and made a note saying power switch and dead CPU. So when we come back to it, we'll know what was wrong. Not that it won't be obvious, because the power switch and the CPU are missing. So let's look at this other one. Now we know the light comes on, but there is no video, so let's take it apart. And we can do the same test. We can check the CPU and the TED by putting them in the C16. But we'll have a look at the board first. This seems a lot more dusty. Let's check the fuse. We know that the power supply is getting through because the light comes on. Fuse is fine. Right, on the surface I can't see any obvious signs of explodey stuff. 4586. What is this one? 3784. So this is quite a bit later. At least the CPU is quite a bit later. 2684, 4884. Okay, let's take the board out. Right, same sort of dust in the bottom. And once again on the back it looks pretty clean. Okay, I'll take both these chips out and we can test them. Right, once again I'll wipe these off, because either way we'll put fresh heatsink on that. Bring out the C16. Let's try the CPU first. There you come. Turn it round. There we go. That's in. Let's try it. 3, 2, 1. Yay, that CPU works. So I'm going to take this out. Just wipe any dust off the top. And we will put a tick on this. That has been tested. Now for the TED. That way round. Notch, notch. On the switch, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so that is a dead TED. I've put the original CPU back and I've marked the dead TED with a big X. Just do a bit more. X. So it's just occurred to me, why don't we take the known working TED out of the other +4 and put it in this one? And so that's just what I've done. I've taken the original working TED out of the on the +4. I'm going to have to wipe that newly applied gunk off, otherwise it will get all over my fingers. It'll probably get all over my fingers anyway. Right, let's put that in here. Let's double check. That way round. There we go. So that should be okay for a brief test. Let's plug the original power supply in for this. That's the video. Go back to our brick. It's not the same power supply as the C16. Sort of more's the pity, really. Right, I won't worry about the keyboard for the time being. Let's see if it works. Power supply is on. 3, 2, 1. Yes, kinda. We've obviously got another problem, but that has actually got us working. Awesome, now we just need to find out what's wrong with the rest of it. The next thing to do is to check it with the Diag ROM. That is called Diag 264. I don't have the test harness to plug in, so we can't do that bit. But we can plug the cartridge in and that will run through the tests. Okay, right. Let's switch it on. That's 6 yellow flashes. I'm not sure what that means. I'll have to try and look that up. And it's just going backwards and forwards between that checkerboard pattern and the app pattern. But we can clearly see that some of those cursor positions are wrong. Right, I've read the manual and that tells me that this first test is checking the data bus, and it writes 2 values to memory, 00 and FF, and that is these 2 patterns that we're seeing. 00 is the @ symbol, FF is the checkerboard symbol. Then these areas where it's not written correctly, the symbol that is in there indicates which data bit is wrong, and if it's a space then it is D5. There are some other values there, but I'm not sure about those. And the number of flashes is the data line starting from 1 flash equals D0. So 6 flashes also says D5, and they would also indicate D5. Now D5 is U16, which is this one. It's not particularly hot. I'll put a line on there saying that is the suspect one. It's also possible that it could be these multiplexers, 74LS257. I will have to look to see if I have got any 4264s. The diagnostic tells us D5, which is U16, which is this pin, which is this chip. Now these are 4264-20s. I have some 4164s-10. The 4164 is slightly different to the 4264. They're both 64 pin. They're both 64-bit by 1 chips, but they differ in terms of what is called page mode. Now you can always substitute a 4264 for a 4164, but not necessarily the other way round. I've had a look at the schematic, and the schematic shows 4164s. So I think what has happened is that Commodore has substituted 4264s for the 4164s because they are opportunistic and they presumably had a bunch. So I think we are going to be safe putting a 4164 in here. So let's take it out of the case. and then we can unsolder this chip. Fresh solder will often make unsoldering easier. It's kind of sticking to the side, so I'm going to need to use some heat to get that out. And we'll come back when I've done that. There we go, the chip is out. Looks like they clipped the legs slightly, so that's interesting. I'll just clean the back. Those legs bend over, so it was interesting getting it out. Now these are MT RAM chips, so it's quite possible that more of them will be faulty. These are not MOS branded, so that is a good thing. I'm going to put a socket in here. The diagnostic test stops when it gets the first error, so there may well be other problems, but we don't yet know. Good, so I will put one of these in there. There it goes. Now before I start powering it up, clear away the solder debris. Diag test take 2. See if we get any further. That's saying 8, so that is D7. I'm going to bet every time we change one of these chips, it's going to say another chip. So I'm going to suggest we just take all of these out, socket them and replace them with modern new chips. Now I've only got 4 of these 4164s, so we'll see how far we get on. Now, as if by magic or simply the passage of time, all 8 RAM chips are now out, and I put sockets in where they weren't before. So these are the RAM chips that came out. This is our original one, D5, which we've got the line on. Now I do have this little device here, which is a DRAM tester. So it plugs into a USB. We plug the DRAM chip in there, press the button. It goes through some tests and lights red or green as to whether it passed or failed. So let's get our USB wire and plug it in. There we have, you see, this is going to be interesting because it wants to go the other way up. Right, so I'm going to have to hold that down. Right, so at the moment we've got 4 colours: red, yellow, green, blue. That just means it's not doing anything. Right, so that socket is for 4116s and this socket is for 4164s. So let's try our original defunct chip. Stick that in, press the button, it will go through and do its testing. It's come back with 1 blue light. That's kind of not a pass, but it's also not a distinct fail. Same again, I would say that's not happy. Let's try another one. We'll go through all of these. 2 reds, 2 greens. That's a fail. So 2 fails. Next one. That's a fail. That's a pass. You could see it went on for longer doing the test, so actually the longer it goes, the more likely it is to pass. That's a pass. We need one more pass in order to have 64K, because I've only got 4 new chips. And that's a pass. Excellent. So we have 5 good RAM chips and 3 fails. Let's bring the board back out. So I'm still going to use 4 of the new RAM chips, and I'll put them all in the bottom. And then what I'll do is I'll buy some more and then repopulate the top, because those empty RAM chips will fail. And now that we've socketed everything, we might as well put new RAM chips in it. So that's our new RAM chips, and for the old ones I'm purely going on how manky or otherwise the pins are. Okay, let us put the Diag Test in and see if we get any further. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Still showing problems. The P indicates a different RAM chip, but the flashing still indicates 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's D4 actually. I wonder, now we've got different speed RAMs in here, so maybe that is of significance, but also it could be the multiplexers. So I think we might want to look at those. I've got some spare ones of those. We can easily change those. Now I haven't done anything. I went back and I just reseated all the RAM chips, and one of them definitely clicked into place, so I think maybe that was, and it was this one, maybe that was not a good contact. So let's try it again. Oh, this has got a lot further. We're now changing colours. Basic ROM, kernel ROM, function low, function high, keyboard. Well, the keyboard is not plugged in, so it's not going to get very far with that. And it's not going to get very far with that. That is looking very much like it's working. Well, hey, now I've got no sound attached, so we're not going to hear that. He says, turning the speakers on, maybe the sound actually is attached. And yes, we have working sound. So one last thing to do is retro bright the keyboard, but I think what I'm going to do is leave that for the next machine and actually take the keyboard off this one, and then this will be one complete unit, and next time we can fix that one. Woohoo! So that is 1 + 4 fixed. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon if you want to support me in that way. The list of patrons is scrolling up the screen, or has scrolled up the screen, and I will see you next time. See ya! Bye!